Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. All right, my friend. So, welcome. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about an experience I had that was pretty significant. And it happened during my usual walk. I usually like to go walk around the neighborhood one or two times a week, three times if I'm feeling pretty good about it. And this was like right around my birthday actually, and on my birthday when I was walking out, and I was feeling pretty good because of a phone call I got earlier that was pretty significant, something that I was like waiting around for regarding a new work opportunity, and that helped contribute a lot to how I was feeling. And something that stood out to me was, after that phone call, part of what I want to talk about is just like how I felt afterwards and what was going on in my mind. So like before I went to go out for a walk, let me just give some context. I was like take some time to take care of some things. I was going online on social media, looking at some posts and stuff like that, and I felt like for me, because I felt really, really, really great. That part of me was like, all right, let me see if I can reach out to some people on social media, you know, and that came up in the form of like looking at some posts and then just commenting or something. Anything that stood out to me that I kind of felt some type of way that resonated with me, I would comment on it something positively with a couple of people, and it felt pretty good. And so, and then I remember even like leading up to going to the my walk outside, I was thinking about wanting to make a post myself too, and I was planning and I had an idea and I wanted to actually take a picture around this area. Actually, it was a little post that I posted on my Instagram and Facebook that I wanted to share. I felt inspired to share, and it's just interesting. When I was going out doing a walk, when I did the thing, I was going by. It was like they had some snow and it actually had some like. It's right by the Smithsonian Zoo. There's a trail that had a bunch of like. I had to navigate a bunch of like there was like some bamboos that had fallen over because of I guess of the weight of the snow, and it was just like it pretty much blocked the section of a large portion of the trail that I'm used to walking through. But I was able to navigate it through. And it was also an interesting experience to just like to look at like, oh wow, this is not something that I see every day. So I was taking some pictures, just looking at it, and just like you know my mind sometimes I think, oh, maybe I could make a post about that as well too. But in any case, I was just walking through and I was going through the tunnel and then I was taking some pictures there too for my post that I was planning on making. But I was thinking about at that point in time, when I feel pretty good within myself, right? Um, it felt easier for me to want to be able to give to other people. In this case, it was like giving the form of just interacting, posting something positive, giving somebody an encouragement, or liking someone's post and then commenting to go take it a step further. It was interesting to see if like for myself that kind of power, because I know for me at times if I'm not careful, I have a tendency to be like a little bit. I kind of I may keep to myself. This could be like an introvert kind of thing, a quality. Could be like a social hermit kind of thing, and so to be able to like do something like this has been really, really impactful for me because I'm at a place where, and like to even add more context to it, that with this podcast, this is like part of my step towards being a content creator, and I've been looking at and have started a couple other platforms as well as far as content creation. But it's been a slow process, and I've been feeling some discouragement within myself to like not do it because of insecurities, worried about what people may think, or just thinking that I have nothing good to say or good to offer. I don't know if you can relate to that, if you ever felt like that before within yourself, that would prohibit you from sharing with people, loved ones, friends, or even just people in passing. And so I'm tying that in because I think this is a very important thing for me, that I was learning that if I find myself like, okay, I'm getting these excuses are coming up to stop me from this path that I'm going on this content creation, being a content creator, where I'm sharing, where a large portion of it, I'm sharing spiritually with people, my perspective on life. So, because I want to help, empower, inspire listeners like yourself, to show up differently in a way that's better than you would have shown up before. But just offering just my takeaways and things like that, my perspective. Um, and these obstacles come up from time to time, and I feel like it's just I find myself at times like these fears come up, and then I easily get into wanting to just detour and get into other things to do like other activities like gaming, for example, to just distract myself when I could put a lot more extra time just sharing and putting together cool new things, even for this podcast, which is something that I really deep down I want it to be evolving just as much as I am. And I don't want to, just keep it, a certain way for a certain long. Like I always want to spice it up and add some things and, make it interesting, add some flavor, and yet still kind of keep to the core of just just that spirit, sharing spirituality as an all-encompassing all thing, just in everything, in all aspects of life. Um, and so when I was feeling pretty good on that during that walk, and having this realization that if I just find myself wanting to get into this analogy for myself, this metaphor of like into my turtle shell or spiritual closet, I feel like a good step in the right direction is let me just reach out to somebody. Let me give of myself to somebody. Let me take some time to just do give of my again, like I said, give to someone, and not expecting anything in return, mind you. But it's like for me, how I see it is like when I give to somebody, I recognize that I'm also giving to myself in whatever shape or form that looks like, right? Um, it The reason why I say this because when I give to somebody, or let's say if when you give to somebody, don't you have like do you ever experience a feeling of fulfillment or some kind of joy or pleasure in having given someone whatever it is? It could be a physical thing, or it could be a gesture, or maybe it could be a kind word that you share, or a compliment or something, right? And then just that pleasure you get from just like them receiving it, and they're like, oh, thank you for sharing that, or they might not even necessarily say thank you, but they can express it to their their bodies, whatever the case may be. That pleasure or that joy, that gratification in giving, that's also giving to you yourself. That's why, like I said, that's like when you give to others, you're giving to yourself as well. It's not like I give to others and I just leave myself out of the equation, because in that case it would just be like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing for somebody, but meh, it's not gonna be no desire behind it or nothing. It's almost just like kind of being like a doormat. Like, I'll just walk all over me, or just this, and it's like I don't care. This is just like the sense of like apathy or something, where it's just like no consideration of how do I feel about in this exchange. So I don't think that anybody can give without any consideration of themselves. I think it's important to just have that awareness, taking a step back and being aware of, as you're being of service when you're giving to somebody, recognizing what am I giving to myself in this moment. And mind you, it's not like it has to be like it's I don't know, it's just a different way of how I see things. And mind you, it's not in a way that's like you know, because I do, hear other people talking about like, you know, transactional stuff, but I feel like that's just some other thing where it's just like where people expect something in return, and it's like in the case I'm just trying to share, I'm not expecting anything. It's like it's almost like the moment when I give something to somebody, I already got what I needed. So now it's just I'm following through on what I'm giving to this person, if that makes any types of sense. You know, I'm a firm believer in unconditional love and of giving without expecting anything in return. I do believe that happens, and I do my best to practice it. I never want to be I never in my life ever want to be a sort of person that if I give something to someone, if I do something for someone, no matter how it is, big or small, whatever, that's going to be something that'll always be out of the kindness and love and desire of my heart because I want to do it. I will never actually at some point use any kindness or anything I've done for somebody against them to try to leverage whatever. That's that's very disrespectful. That's not genuine. It's just not cool, you know. And so when I try to give of myself, it's like I'm not going to expect nothing in return. So even like bringing back the example when I mentioned earlier about when I was up during my walk, or even when I was sharing about like I was doing making some posts on interacting with some friends of mine and stuff like that on social media and other people. In that case, it's like let me just post on somebody's wall. Maybe somebody makes a status post. Maybe they're happy about something or whatever. Or if they just make whatever the case may be, right? If I feel like I can chime in to some degree, positively, constructively, I'll go ahead and do so. And I won't expect a like. I won't expect a comment back. And it's like, and I tell myself this: I'm not going to expect none of this back. I just want to like give. I mean, if it's just a compliment, right? And just in that case, I'm not going to expect anything in return. Like even like in the case of like a compliment, for example, it's like, oh, I can give of myself, and I don't expect this person to say thank you. You don't have to thank me. You know, that's the kind of the that's the kind of feeling and strength that true love's all about. It's not about like, oh, I need validation or I need you to appreciate me. You know, I think about like my spirit guides. Like they give of themselves so many times, and they share so much when they don't have to. But they're not there going around there like, oh, why don't you appreciate us? Why don't you do this, this, and that, blah, 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 blah. Same thing will be said about God. He gives so much to us. He doesn't expect like, oh, you got to do all this and stuff like that. I particularly don't subscribe into like we owe him something necessarily. I don't think because at the end of the day, we all have free will. I believe it from the standpoint of universal law, and so the kind of giving I think is genuine is the one that comes from desire. Like I genuinely want to do this. No one is telling me to this. My motives are clear. I'm doing this to give so much to you, knowing that I'm also giving to myself in that process, this win win situation. And I'm sharing this because, growing up, I've always been taught about this like selflessness. Now, it was shared to me, and I love it because it's like pretty interesting because it gave me an interesting perspective. Whereas like selflessness is a good technique, but a terrible way of life, a terrible way of living. In other words, there are moments when I have to really think about the other person, really just focus all of my energy and efforts on the person that perhaps I'm engaging with. Right? There might be moments that really do call for that. But then after everything is said and done, after the incident, whatever with this person, the exchange, the interaction is said and done, now what? Well, I have to come back home. And just to give you some context here, I'm pointing to myself and pointing at my heart. I have to come back home because of that pivot of through all my relationships. I can't forget my own basic relationship with myself and remembering that I have a responsibility to myself to live my own life because no one's going to live my life for me. I can't live your life for you, and that is a fact. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that little bit up because I think it's important to recognize that selflessness is okay as like I said, as like a in moments when it's necessary, very situational, right? But at the end of the day, it's like have to come back to self, have to operate from myself. I mean, I remember, my mentor was like, you need a little bit of just a little bit, like a tiny grain of selfishness or of selfish, only from the perspective of my sense of self. I am operating from my sense of self. I am not, I'm interacting or I'm giving to people from my sense of self of who I am, what I am. Because if I'm not operating with any sense of myself in my interactions with people, to me, I see that as being insincere, not genuine. Because I'm operating out of somebody else, anybody else other than me. If that makes any types of if that makes any type of sense, my friend. Why I'm sharing this goes back to motive. What's my motive in what I'm doing? I think that's part of really want to drive home here, and as I'm sharing this, why it matters. When I'm giving, what's my motive? And it could be the difference between either is it conditional, am I expecting something? Like I do this and someone's gonna owe me, or unconditional. No, I'm giving to somebody. Because it's from the unconditional perspective, it's like knowing that everybody's gonna win out of it. Like I think when it comes to like there's this I feel like people can have this idea of like sacrifice, you know? Like I remember I did a post uh on Substack. I do little some posts on there. Come check it out. I'm gonna see if I can put on the show notes here for you to come check it out if you want. But I was doing a post, you know, when I was doing some cleaning. I was heading over with my coworker to our next clean, and I came across this one signage, this post on this elevator, and it was for Valentine's Day, where and it was like it was saying that love is where someone else's happiness is more important than your own. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And to me, and why I bring that up because it brings up this idea of love that involves sacrifice, or where I have to compromise my own well-being. Basically, that's what this statement was saying. Again, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but I'm like, well, why can't my happiness be just as important as somebody else's? You know, why can't it? Why do I have to just shut myself down in order to be of service to other people? I don't know about you, but as I'm saying it, it doesn't make any type of sense. It brings this idea that has to be winners and losers, but that's not reality. Even though we live in a world that's very competition driven, from nature to just society, business, looking at from that perspective. But in the realm of spirituality, in the realm of all things spiritual, with spirit, with God, there is no competition because the universal law of abundance is that there's everything's there for all of us. Love. How we are love. Let me also just say that as well too, you know? And so something to consider is like when you get something that was shared with me that resonates so much is that I can't give to others what I don't already have, you know? So is that whatever I've experienced within myself, I can give to others. So if I've experienced love, I can give love to others. Same thing can be said about you, my friend. Whatever you've experienced, you can give to others, right? And this is why I wanted to add this. I say that to add more of a layer so that when you're giving of yourself to people, whatever that looks like, that's that love that's coming from within you doing that. That's just coming out and being infused into your actions and words and thoughts too. I mean, there'll be times when, so it's like when it comes to like looking at giving, right? I give so much, or I feel like that I feel that this desire to give so much when I feel so full of life, when feel so fulfilled with where I'm at, regardless of X, Y, and Z. Like where I'm at right now, I feel fulfilled right now. When I feel genuinely good, when I've experienced that, man, I just want to keep. I want to just give. It's like I have my cup is overflowing. Hey, y'all, I have so much to give. But then also, I feel like giving can also be just as helpful if we need that boost. If we feel a little bit down, or if we feel cut off, maybe we might feel excluded. Maybe we might feel, what's that word? Separated, lonely, or something. I feel like in those times is it's also important to even take that opportunity to step out of ourselves. For me, step out of myself and give of myself. And in this particular instant, in the situation where I'm kind of feeling a little bit down, I need to boost myself up. That's where I know, like, if I'm giving of myself to somebody, part of my motive is I'm helping myself to uplift myself, to elevate myself, to bring myself back. Because none of us belong to the dark, rocky bottom. Though we experience a bit of it in our lives, they're just experiences, but they don't define us. That's not where our place is. Our place is from a place of contentment and joy, satisfaction. I say this because look back when we were children, when we were pure feeling these, we were just bundles of joy, bundles of light within us. It's just that all of us at some point, every single one of us have been a bundle of light. We came in that way. And that to me only just shows that what really is what's the norm, like as far as like I'm gonna use the term loosely, but what's normal for us, what's our normal state. And maybe that would be actually quite applicable. It's like to be happy and to be uh, is our normal state when we actually also consider our own wants and needs, and also take into consideration our own life purpose too. you know and I do believe that when it comes to life purpose and giving is the common ingredient that's part of everybody's life purpose. It has to be. Why else will we even be involved? If I wasn't going to get something out of it, knowing in my service to others. So you know I'm sharing all this because I definitely want to give a different perspective on that, especially, and then I really want to kind of point out and just the dangers of things like having to sacrifice and stuff like that. I feel like there's just certain situations. I don't know. I mean, for me, this is just kind of my sense right now. There might come a point where, and I'll talk about it. You know, where if for some reason this idea of sacrifice, you know, has to happen, I think is BS. That's just how I thought that sign. Like, I don't have to. I can have high regard and importance of my happiness as much as everybody else's. And because and one of the big things I was sharing from that post is that everybody has a right to their own happiness. Everybody has a responsibility for their own happiness. One of the things that I got from it when I wrote it down was like, happiness is not something that gets injected into each of us. It's something that comes about. It radiates from within us. So like when people, so like let's tie it in this way. So when you give of yourself, when you give love to the people, essentially what you're doing is you're not necessarily giving them what they don't already have, but by your love and your desire and you're being genuine, sincere, when you give of yourself to another person, friend, family, or a stranger, you're helping to activate, to help within them their love radiate more. That's the kind of influence that we really have in reality. We can't change outside in somebody. That's something that happens inside out. So when I give, right, it's like I'm helping to stimulate this person. So like I'm giving to myself, giving love to somebody. I'm stimulating that love within them that they have, if that makes sense. So just giving you, I want to give you a different picture of like what that looks like. But definitely that takeaway of like it's not something injected. It doesn't come from the outside. I mean, again, for the outside, what comes from the outside is the influence. But as far as like the source is concerned, in this context, let's say happiness or love, that comes from within, that activates from within. So yeah. So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, back to the whole giving thing. And so I think, one of the ways that I try to give as well too, and I feel like And I definitely think there's a good is important to have an awareness of the time and place when to do it. But something that I think that goes a long way is that even like when I'm passing people in the streets, there's people. There'll be some people that I'll make eye contact with for a brief moment, and I'll just and usually on the times when I feel pretty good about myself, I'll genuinely give them a smile, and people who can be very receptive, who can pick it up, or they themselves can also feel that within themselves, will smile back. You know, so it's like that. Hey, hey, what's up, kind of interaction, and then we just go our own separate ways. You know, um, so I think that's an important thing, an antidote, especially when they talk about like an epidemic of loneliness and all this and that. I think those is a necessary time to give of ourselves, to share. And especially when it comes to wisdom, everybody's got wisdom. I know that for a fact because we've all had experiences. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you have a lot to give. Oh, I'm sure. Otherwise, you wouldn't be attracted to come listen to me and this podcast. What you see in me, what you have in you as well. Think about that. And so I think that's going to be a very important thing so that it can help us connect with each other and build. But definitely, if there's anything that I want to kind of emphasize is that always check your motives. You know, am I giving conditionally or am I giving unconditionally? And I hope that based on what I've shared in this episode so far, that I've given you some understanding of the differences. I hope. It's all a practice, you know what I mean? And it's always in this evolution, uh, always evolving and things like that. But this is just based on like the things that I've learned so far, my understanding and my own spiritual work and working with people. And and one of the other emphasis I want to talk about is when it comes to giving is that it can be a win-win. I can do what I do for me and you, for me and for you. That's possible. That can happen. Doesn't have to be any sort of sacrifice or forget myself or anything like that because I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's the healthy way of giving. Again, this is just my opinion. If you respectfully disagree, you disagree. That's fine. I'm not here to prove. Like I said, I'm here to just kind of offer a perspective for the sake of I want to be able to elevate other people's perspectives. So that's why I just share what I share, you know. And if that's something if I've accomplished for you, my friend, if that's, thank you. Gladdens me to know that. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna say what I think I know, or whoever's listening, whoever happens to come across this episode, this specific one, in fact, um, and and at the end of the day, too, the big picture is like we're all here on this planet together. We're all passing through together, having this shared human experience. You know, I think part of our spiritual growth and our own evolution has to involve giving. You know, especially if you're one that you consider yourself a teacher, and I do believe everybody's a teacher. By the way, have to make our wisdom practical for other people, and that's part of what I'm doing too. You know, that's part of that why I'm doing this podcast and trying to move further on to content creation and stuff, and my own battles that I'm working through and stuff like that. That's stopping me from doing that, but at least I have this podcast that I've been sticking with for a while, for over a year now, and I'm gonna keep at it. Because I really genuinely enjoy doing this. I know what I'm giving to myself doing this as I'm providing this podcast, this episode for you, my friend, my gift to you. And you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me anything. I just want to say that for the people at the back. You don't owe me anything. Never will. Because I'm a firm believer in unconditional love. 100%. 100%. And let's see, anything else I want to just, yeah. So I feel like I'm looking at my little closing points here, what I was going to say, but I kind of mentioned a bit of them. But I guess at this point in time, I don't know. I'm like, this feels kind of awkward for me. I'm like, I don't know what to do. But yeah, I just hope that, like I said, I gave you some a higher perspective on giving. Um, one that, again, that's win-win. You give to yourself as you give unto others. You give unto others as you give to yourself. Unto, I don't know why I say unto. I'm trying to sound biblical here. You give to yourself as you give to others. You give to others as you give to yourself. Oh. And the fulfillment and joy in giving is the gift back. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Build all that goodness, doing the inner work, building on that relationship with yourself, and then release all that love that comes about that, the transformation, the healing. Spread that out. Sharing is caring, and share that healing light that you have, the love that you are, to help activate other people in such ways you activate their love, to influence other people to activate their love. Be a candle, it's like stay lit and steady in this seemingly dark world, because it's worth it. It is worth it, light worker. It is worth it. And so I'll conclude it here, my friend. This has been another episode of Spiritual Engineered. Appreciate your time and attention. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, my dear friend, take care.